ready to debate. The two vice presidential candidates meet face-to-face tonight.
Pence versus Kaine, the one and only vice presidential debate happening on this stage behind me. I'm Jason Calvi. We'll have a preview and look at their faith coming up.
Hurricane Matthew wreaks havoc in the Caribbean. We look at when and where it might hit the U.S. And earthquake recovery. Pope Francis surprises people in Italian towns hit by the August quake. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, October 4th, 2016. We are just hours away from tonight's vice presidential debate. It is the only time Mike Pence and Tim Kaine go head-to-head in this campaign. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. We have political team coverage. Jason Calvi is at the scene of tonight's debate in Farmville, Virginia. Chief White House correspondent and political director Lauren Ashburn is at our political desk. Lauren?
Brian, Virginia Governor Tim Kaine and Indiana Governor Mike Pence are both professed men of faith, and we're expecting the candidates to debate social issues like gay rights, the fate of the unborn, and religious freedom. Jason Calvi is in historic Farmville, Virginia, where the debate begins at 9 p.m. It's also where the South's General Lee held his last meeting before surrendering 25 miles away.
Lauren, Mike Pence needs a strong performance tonight. Think of his running mate, Donald Trump, being criticized for his debate performance as well as his taxes. Now, vice presidential debates can be seen as momentum shifting. Think of 2004 with George W. Bush or 2012 with Barack Obama. Both of them in their first debates seen as doing very poorly but still winning the White House. Now, tonight's 90-minute debate will be broken up into 9 segments, 10 minutes each. And many will be watching to see if faith is brought up like it has been on the campaign trail.
But I'm kind of a traditional Catholic. I don't like, personally, I'm opposed to abortion, and personally, I'm opposed to the death penalty.
But as a senator, Tim Kaine has supported abortion, including voting no on a 20-week abortion ban. Planned Parenthood gives him a perfect score when voting on these issues. On the other hand, Mike Pence first introduced bills in the House to defund Planned Parenthood, a call he repeats on the campaign trail.
And if you aspire and cherish the sanctity of life and all of our God-given liberties.
Pence was baptized and raised Catholic and is now considered an evangelical Christian.
That if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, he'll do like he's always done. He'll hear from heaven, and he'll heal our land.
Senator Kaine was also raised Catholic and attends a parish in Richmond, Virginia. He says he was inspired by his Jesuit teachers and the mentors he served alongside as a missionary in Honduras.
The motto of Rockhurst High School was Men for Others, and they really tried to teach you to measure your life by the effect you could have on other people's lives.
Kaine says he's changed his mind about traditional marriage, and he predicted the church would too. But National Catholic Register blogger Monsignor Charles Pope says that's impossible.
The church has no authority whatsoever to redefine marriage. It's been given to us by God. We have no authority to change that definition.
And as the world watches these two spar on the stage tonight, EWTN senior contributor Dr. Matthew Bunson invites both VP nominees to come back to the true roots of the Catholic Church.
To come back into that Catholic community that helped form them in the first place, that gave Governor Pence his foundation in his respect for the life cause, and gave to Senator Kaine his obvious passion for social justice. Both of those grew out of the same soil of the church. And somewhere along the line, they wandered away from this garden.
Now a group of lay conservative Catholics called Catholic Vote is raising questions about Kaine's trip, his missionary trip to Honduras. They say it was there that radical influence has really corrupted his view of Christianity, whereas Mike Pence has run into disagreements with the Archbishop of Indianapolis. The Archdiocese wanted to resettle Syrian refugees, and the governor said they shouldn't. Lauren?
This debate will be unlike the presidential debates where faith really wasn't discussed. Jason, how many viewers, though, are we expecting to see?
Probably not as many as last week's record-setting 84 million. But when we look at the history, looking at all of the debates in the United States, presidential and vice presidential, the third most watched was actually a vice presidential debate, that between Joseph Biden and Sarah Palin. Many people wanting to watch to see this person who will be one heartbeat away from the presidency.
Okay, Jason Calvi reporting for us in Farmville, Virginia. Jason, thank you very much. Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill, joins us at our political desk. And Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union, joins us from the site of tonight's debate in Farmville, Virginia. Matt, these men are on opposite sides of the issue on many issues important to Catholics, like pro-life and defunding Planned Parenthood. This wasn't mentioned at all among the presidential candidates. Do you expect either man to make an appeal to Catholic voters tonight?
I do. I think Mike Pence will make a strong appeal, but Tim Kaine's also trying to make that appeal. You know, went to a Jesuit high school in Kansas City, and he tries to appeal to Catholics. But in our own congressional ratings at the American Conservative Union on these issues important to people of faith, Tim Kaine has a 0, and Mike Pence has a career rating of 99%. Lauren, you couldn't find two more people on polar opposites on these key issues.
That's true. Bob, one of your reporters says that Kaine will target Pence specifically on his push to defund Planned Parenthood and on his controversial support of religious freedom protection. Is that going to be a mistake for him to come out swinging?
It could be. I think it depends on how Kaine goes after Pence. Pence is a fiscal and he's a social conservative. He makes no apologies about it. And when I've talked to him over the years, he said, I'm a conservative and I'm not angry about it. So both these men are well-spoken. Both these men actually have presidential qualities that sometimes are lacking at the top of the ticket. But make no mistake about it. Pence is going to go after Hillary Clinton and Kaine is going to go after Donald Trump.
And that's what vice presidential debates are. That's why you have them. Now, Matt, as chair of Trump's Catholic Advisory Board, what does Pence need to say or do tonight to really win over Catholics?
I think the key for Mike Pence is to let them know that he understands the critical issue now from a public policy standpoint is your religious freedom, our protections under the First Amendment of the Constitution to practice our faith, and it's very much under attack. We saw with Obamacare, we saw with what happened with the Little Sisters of the Poor, with all these mandates like the contraception mandate that came out. And I think Mike Pence needs to explain to these voters that he understands, Lauren, some of these voters might not be Republican and they might not be all that conservative on a whole bunch of other issues, but questions of their faith and their ability to practice their faith are at the central part of their life and probably will make a big impact on who they decide to vote for. Mike Pence has to connect to those voters.
Okay, and I think that is one of the things that everyone's looking for tonight. Bob, you've covered many of these debates. We all have. We have seen the famous Lloyd Benson line to Dan Quayle saying, "You're no Jack Kennedy." I remember watching in journalism school as Admiral Stockdale took to the vice presidential stage saying, "Who am I? Why am I here?" And, the very first debate with the presidents raised everybody's blood pressure.
Yeah.
Is anybody going to have a detectable pulse by the time this is over?
Well, this is not going to have, I think, the vitriol maybe that the first one did. But at the same time, this is an important debate because if you think back to 4 years ago, Barack Obama was soundly defeated by Mitt Romney in the first presidential debate. And Joe Biden was able, I think, to outpoint Paul Ryan, and that kind of changed the momentum of the race. So that's where the pressure is on Pence. He's going to be talking, I think, about Hillary Clinton's emails. He's going to be talking about Obamacare, which has been struggling, and Bill Clinton was criticizing. So I think he's got to capitalize on the issues, and Kaine has to look and try to divide Trump from Pence. Like, wait a minute, you release your tax returns. Why hasn't Donald Trump? That kind of thing.
Right. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union, who is in Farmville, Virginia. Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill. Always great to have you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lauren.
The Real Clear Politics average of polls heading into tonight's debate have Hillary Clinton up 3.8 nationwide. And that makes it 48.1 Clinton, 44.3 for Trump. Brian, we're going to have coverage of the debate tomorrow night on EWTN News Nightly. The debate begins at 9 p.m. and I'll be live tweeting at Lauren Ashburn.
Thank you, Lauren. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Hurricane Matthew slams into Haiti's southwestern tip with howling 145-mile-per-hour winds today. It is now blamed for 7 deaths in the Caribbean. Floods, landslides, and damaging winds left destruction in a poor, mostly rural area of Haiti. 1 man drowned. 4 people died in the Dominican Republic, including 3 children. The walls of their homes collapsed in a poor neighborhood. The White House says the U.S. is ready to help.
These are countries that don't have significant modern infrastructure, and this is one of the strongest storms to come along in several decades, at least in this part of the world. So obviously we want to keep our thoughts and prayers with people in these countries who are, even as we speak, facing a rather difficult situation.
The National Hurricane Center has already issued a hurricane watch for Florida. President Obama, who planned to join a Miami Gardens rally for Hillary Clinton, is postponing his Florida trip. Pope Francis makes a surprise visit today to the mountain communities of central Italy devastated by an August earthquake. The Vatican announced the Pope's visit shortly after his arrival there this morning. The Holy Father surveyed the damage in the town of Amatrice with firefighters. He then spent time praying silently alone amid the rubble. The Vatican said Francis visited a man who lost his wife and children in the August quake. The Pope said he wanted to keep the visit private to be close to the people. Secretary of State John Kerry vows the U.S. will not abandon its push for peace in Syria. This despite his announcement to suspend all talks with Russia over the Syrian conflict. Wyatt Goolsbee reports tonight from the State Department. Wyatt?
Brian, U.S.-Russia relations now appear to be at a new post-Cold War low. Secretary Kerry says Russia has rejected diplomacy. Instead, he says that they are promoting a military solution and propping up the Syrian president.
I have to tell you with a great sense of outrage that Russia has turned a blind eye to Assad's deplorable use of these weapons of war that he has chosen, chlorine gas, barrel bombs against his people. People who are serious about making peace behave differently from the way Russia has chosen to behave.
Speaking in Brussels today, Secretary of State John Kerry explaining how Washington and Moscow will still discuss Syria's civil war as part of negotiations with other countries, but direct talks are out. Kerry says the decision wasn't taken lightly. Over the past year, the U.S. has been critical of Russian airstrikes of rebel-controlled areas like Aleppo. According to one human rights watchdog, Russian bombings have killed more than 9,000 people and displaced tens of thousands. The Syrian civil war between the Assad government and rebel groups has raged for 5.5 years. 500,000 people have been killed, and the conflict has allowed ISIS to carve out territory for itself. The Russian foreign minister saying from the very beginning there were many who wanted to ruin the agreements, including from within the U.S. administration. The Russian military is responding to Kerry's announcement by beefing up its forces in Syria with state-of-the-art air defense missiles. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is calling on the U.S. and Russia to resume talks. He says a ceasefire is vital to getting humanitarian aid to those who need it. Ban Ki-moon says he will be meeting with American and Russian representatives in Brussels.
I strongly urge to resume their negotiations so that there will be a cessation of hostilities.
Pope Francis is calling on all parties, including the international community, to do everything they can to protect innocent civilians. In his public audience last Wednesday, the Holy Father talked about how he was worried about Aleppo, where there are a large number of children and elderly that are among the dead. Brian?
Thank you, Wyatt Goolsbee at the State Department. Coming up, ecumenical outreach. Pope Francis and the Archbishop of Canterbury meet this week. And the Vatican on sports and faith, how they can help people find common ground. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is in Rome for the 50th anniversary of the Anglican Center there. He meets with Pope Francis tomorrow, and the two will pray Vespers together. Some see this as another step toward unity between Anglicans and Catholics. Ed Penton, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register, is joining us. Ed, what's on the Archbishop's schedule while he's there in Rome?
Well, Brian, first of all, he's going to meet the Pope here. This is going to be his third visit to the Pope Francis. Then he's also going to celebrate a joint liturgy with Pope Francis at San Gregorio al Cielo, which is very significant for Anglicans. It's also the 50th anniversary of the Anglican Centre, which is the centre for Anglicans here in Rome, and it's the 20th anniversary of a commission between Anglicans and Catholics. But also there's a joint mission going out of 19 Catholics, 19 Anglicans to go out together and bring the gospel to the world. So it's quite a significant event, especially for the Anglican community.
Is there progress toward unity between the Catholic Church and the Anglican Communion?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I think for Anglicans there is significant advances being made. They see this kind of event this week as being symbolic of that. But for many Catholics, I think, and certainly even some Anglicans, I think there's a sense that actually the Anglican Church has drifted away from Catholic Church over the past 50 years in terms of morals and ethics, but also regarding the ordination of women bishops in particular. And so for them, they feel actually the gap has grown wider.
Ed, give us a brief history of Anglicanism, if you would.
Well, Anglicanism dates back to King Henry VIII, who broke away from the Church of Rome back in the 16th century because the Pope at that time didn't grant him a divorce from Catherine of Aragon, his wife, and so he split away and set up the Church of England, and from that came the Anglican Communion. It's not part of the Catholic Church, as we know. It's an ecclesial community which actually doesn't have all the sacraments except for baptism.
What is the Anglican Ordinariate, and what impact has it had on relations between these churches?
Well, the Ordinariate was set up by Pope Benedict in 2011 really to facilitate those Anglicans who don't like the way forward the Anglican Church is going and want to come into communion with Rome and to have unity with the Holy See. It's a way of Anglicans keeping their patrimony and their heritage, but at the same time becoming Catholic and receiving all the sacraments. So that was really the aim of the Ordinariate, and many people think that was the sort of true unity that's hoped for.
Ed Penton joining us from Rome, our National Catholic Register correspondent there. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Brian.
And sport at the service of humanity is a topic of discussion at the Vatican this week. British soccer star Kash Siddiqui is helping the Catholic Church promote the connection between faith and sport. He says being a Muslim and working with the Holy Father sends a powerful message.
I hope this works as a catalyst to try and transcend that throughout the global communities that we work with, that sport really has the power to unite people, and faith and sport can really bring people together.
The Vatican describes this conference as a gathering of global leaders and people of influence from the world of faith, sport, and business. Up next, pro-life generation. A Nebraska student finds herself in a legal standoff with her high school. And a new movie gives a voice to the voiceless. The church celebrates St. Francis of Assisi on this 4th of October. The founder of the Friars Minor, or Franciscans, gave up family wealth to embrace what he called Lady Poverty. Without strife or schism, he became the means of renewing the church in the 13th century. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. The Nebraska high school is accused of discriminating against Bridget Christensen, a student trying to form a pro-life group. The Thomas More Society asked the school in a legal letter to officially recognize Dragons for Life. The letter states, there is no legally acceptable reason to classify differently Bridget's club with any other multitude of other non-curricular, fully recognized and sponsored clubs at Gretna High School. Bridget Christensen, a high school junior in Gretna, Nebraska, joining us by Skype from suburban Omaha. Bridget, tell us very briefly about your group and how it got into trouble with the school there.
Well, this year I've been trying to get school approval for my pro-life club, Dragons for Life, and the school has been denying us that approval that it's been giving to other clubs like Gay Straight Alliance, even like things like Chess Club. We're just as legit as they are, but they are getting rights that we're not.
What reason are they giving you?
They're saying that it's too political, too controversial, and it's too close to being religious. And even after we've discussed with them that we're none of those things, they still refuse to allow us to be approved.
And how are your fellow students reacting to all this?
Many of them are, in deep support of us, even if they don't support our cause. And the pro-life movement, they support my First Amendment rights.
I know the Thomas More Society is working with you, but also the ACLU is backing you. What are you learning from this experience?
I'm learning that this isn't just about pro-life or pro-choice. It's really just about making sure everybody's given equal rights and not being discriminated against.
Now, this would seem really obvious, but explain what you mean by calling life a human issue.
It's a human issue because it's not just based on political stance. There are Democrats that are pro-life. There are people that are neither Democrat or Republican that are pro-life. So it reaches even beyond a political issue. It's just an issue that has to do with the human race in general.
And what are you and your fellow students willing to do to make sure that you are able to run your club there at Gretna High School?
We're willing to, take time from our busy lives, drop everything, and, tell the school what's up and that they need to change their decisions and make the right ones.
Well, thank you for telling us all about it. Bridget Christensen, a high school junior in Gretna, Nebraska, joining us by Skype. Thanks, Bridget.
Yeah, no problem.
And a new pro-life movie opens in theaters Friday. Voiceless portrays a recently discharged soldier, now totally devoted to his faith. He discovers an abortion clinic right across the street from his church.
I'm referring to the clinic that's across the street.
It's a family planning clinic, right?
And they also have about 5 to 20 abortions a day.
And what are we doing? I'll tell you what we're doing, nothing.
Is someone addressing the situation?
I just told you I'm working on it.
Jason Jones is co-executive producer of the new pro-life movie Voiceless. Give us a quick snapshot of the storyline.
Well, this is a powerful, entertaining, and gritty film about a veteran who comes home, and he's an associate pastor, wants to start a boxing club and a youth group when he notices an abortion clinic across the street and decides to extend his ministry to praying, but that creates controversy in the church. So his goal is to just pray, and his church has to come to grips with that.
In a first, this movie premiered on Friday outside the U.S. Supreme Court. Is that where you lost your voice?
It is where I lost my voice. And, as I was standing on the Supreme Court and my voice was almost completely gone, I thought of something Rene Girard said. When you are in solidarity with the weak, you become weak. And I thought, here I am in solidarity with the voiceless, and I've had the privilege to lose my voice promoting this film. But it is a powerful film produced by an evangelical Christian inspired by the Catholic Witness for Life. And so he wanted to make a movie that would create a debate in the evangelical church so that they would start pro-life ministries. He wants a pro-life ministry in every church across America because he heard that in a Catholic parish, there's a pro-life ministry in every Catholic parish. And so he was inspired by that. And, with our movie Bella, over 1,000 women wrote us letters who were scheduled to have an abortion, saw the film, and kept their baby. Imagine if 1,000 churches who are not engaged in the struggle to protect the child in the womb from the violence of abortion start pro-life ministries.
So Bella, little boy, now voiceless, you have really dedicated your life to this issue. Why did you become this pro-life activist that you are?
Well, I was raised with no religion, and at 17, my high school girlfriend became pregnant. I dropped out of high school to become a father, to man up, to be a father. But while I was away in basic training, her father forced her to have an abortion. I didn't even know abortion was legal until I found out my child was aborted. It was something I didn't really know about. It was unthinkable to me. And so as a 17-year-old private in the Army, I just committed myself. I want to use my life to tell the truth about the beauty and dignity of the child in the womb. Searching for the source of that beauty led me to the Catholic Church, and that's how I became Catholic. But what led me into the film industry was I think film is the best way to tell the truth. It's the best way. Roger Ebert said that a motion picture is an empathy machine. And so that's our goal.
I cannot wait to see Voiceless. I'm sure it's in a lot of theaters this weekend.
It opens on 120 theaters. Bella opened up on 80, and then it went to theaters around the country. So if we have a big opening weekend, we'll be everywhere. So go opening weekend if you can.
All right, Jason Jones, we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you very much.
God bless you. And for the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. We leave you tonight with another look at tonight's vice presidential debate site in Farmville, Virginia. We have comprehensive coverage tomorrow on EWTN News Nightly. Good night. God bless.